A while ago, I released a science news segment about a neat, funny, strange, and kind of silly paper that, despite its seeming bizarreness, actually managed to retain a foothold in the realm of technical plausibility. That paper was about the hypothesis that a supernova killed off Megalodon. Basically, these giant sharks were these massive organisms with a ridiculously huge number of cells spread out over a body with a very large profile, or footprint, two-dimensional surface area, if you will. When the nearby supernova happened, millions of years ago, it blasted high-energy particles and ionizing radiation across the depths of space, and eventually some of those particles and some of that radiation landed on Earth. The particles and the radiation would, through sheer probability, hit larger organisms more often than smaller organisms. Larger organisms like Megalodon were basically hit with an artillery barrage of cancer-inducing radiation, and they were subsequently wiped out. Now, this is a pretty interesting idea, but the scientific community, and even the author of the paper himself, were pretty skeptical of the idea. However, I thought it was pretty cool, and novel, and thought-provoking in a fun kind of way, so I briefly talked about it. I touch on this because today I want to talk about another paper about that same supernova, but this paper explores a different aspect of the consequences that the supernova had on Earth life. This paper looks at the supernova's effect on us. First, the paper explores a supernova from 7 to 8 million years ago that is hypothesized to have started forest fires here on Earth. There is geological evidence of large forest fires from around this time period, which is a coincidence that suggests further analysis. Maybe it's not quite a coincidence. There isn't a currently accepted cause for these fires, but the supernova hypothesis is out there, competing for validity. So, in the Megalodon segment, I explained how cosmic rays blasting into particles in our atmosphere can create muons, which can mutate DNA. This is, according to this hypothesis, what killed off the Megalodon. But cosmic rays will also smash into atoms and blast their electrons clean out of their orbitals, and this will create free electrons that are floating around in the atmosphere. This leads directly to the atmosphere becoming more electrically charged, more conductive, and so lightning is much more likely to form. We know that lightning today causes forest fires, so more lightning strikes all over the sky 7 to 8 million years ago directly increases the chances of large, widespread forest fires. There's some pretty solid evidence of these forest fires from 7 to 8 million years ago, but there's not as much evidence for newer forest fires that happened 2 to 3 million years ago, when this second supernova happened. It's argued that the first supernova and its subsequent forest fires would have radically altered Earth's surface vegetation, burning down the fire-vulnerable forests and replacing them with more fire-tolerant savannas and other types of dry, more spaced-out open canopy forest and lightly forested grassland. The second supernova would have continued, or even accelerated this trend, this ecological trend of the forests retreating and giving way to savanna and grassland. This gradual ecological shift over 7 to 8 million years created a more open landscape on Earth, where the ancestors of humans could descend from the trees and start living out in the open. This open landscape environment would select for bipedalism, as a taller, more upright person who isn't hunched along like their primate ancestors, they would be able to see farther along the landscape. They could better detect predators and see objects of interest, like an oasis, a river, a herd of migrating water buffalo, or whatever else might be of value or interest to the early primitive ancestors of us Homo sapiens. So maybe this is hugely unlikely. Maybe this study is elaborate speculation bordering on being goofy. And while I'm hesitant to take this up as indisputable fact right away, the evidence for this hypothesis is relatively thin, I do think it's a super cool concept. Try to visualize what this would have looked like to the dozens or maybe hundreds of generations of human ancestors that were around at the time to see this while it was going on. First, they would see a brilliant flash of light in the sky, which would cool down into a glowing blossom of ethereal color. The supernova would linger in the sky for months, its brightness illuminating the night almost like a full moon. Shortly after the light reaches Earth, and the supernova becomes visible to proto-human eyes, the cosmic rays come in and smash into the atmosphere, creating very intense, undulating auroras, and even the air itself glows with this electric blue haze. The sky is literally glowing, and this glow condenses into the thunderous clapping blasts of lightning. Strike after strike, the lightning would cascade down from the sky with this horrifying, unending, super high frequency. And it looks as if the Earth's surface is being pulverized with the wrath of Zeus himself. After the sky engulfs in fire, the land engulfs in fire. Walls of flame birthed from the lightning now wash over everything, consuming forests and leaving behind ashy wasteland. Some forests try to recover, but remember, this is a process that goes on for months, maybe years, so the ecology is radically transformed. You wouldn't have the ordinary successional process come in and refill the ecology, because in many places the forest fires were so intense that the topsoil itself was burned to dust and it was gone, and so there was no medium left for any subsequent successional cycle to come in and try and regenerate. These vast forests were permanently destroyed and replaced with more open grassland. The hominids find their forest homes destroyed, unsuitable, and undesirable. They move out onto the newly cleared plains and freshly formed savannas of Africa. Evolution gradually stands them upright, walking them on their hind feet so they can use their hands to fashion spears and arrows with which to hunt the local fauna. This newly emergent biped, standing upright in his grassland habitat, can now look up into the night sky and think about those pinpoints of light that look back down at him. It will be another 7 to 8 million years before this hominid lineage understands what those stars are, and the subtle but critical role that they might have played in their earthly evolution.